right, what's going on, everybody? A little bit of a late start, but you know we're going to get this in here. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe if this is what you're looking for. All right, folks, we have hit that particular layer in society where we are now watching the potential either end of the American experiment, or we'll call it the weakening of the American experiment. One of those two. I mean, we're literally at the point where we are seeing democracy as we know it being kneecapped every day. We're watching a level of destruction to rights and privileges that were fought for falling down within the last 7 or 8 months. We're seeing lies being told that are demonstrably false, but we have people trying to convince us that, oh, you don't really see what's happening. As if they're trying to say, who are you going to believe, us or your lying eyes? So I figured I'm going to go ahead and have a conversation about that today. Just a moment. Let me put the music in the background. All right. So if you see the title of the show, I thought it's about time we have a conversation about some of this this rhetoric that we see being flown out here that no one is really addressing as they should. You know what? As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and turn the music off. No, I need to be heard today. Damn it, I need to be heard. All right, so what we have today here, the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word and receipts, because y'all know I come heavy with the receipts here. I am not going to sit by one more day and act as if I don't see lies being told, but yet we're seeing people who are now being literally fired. And I'm not talking about the idiots out here, hey, celebrating. No, it is inexcusable what happened to that man. But it is not excusable for the speech that he left behind. It is not excusable for anyone to say, we will continue his work. Or let me rephrase that. It is inexcusable for someone to do that. We cannot have the excuse of he did not put out racism. We have seen it, folks. But you have people who will claim, well, I don't see any racism. I don't see your proof. But think about it. As long as you don't hear anyone, this is including Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes, Milos, anybody out here, people will act as if they don't hear, we'll say, the slur for blacks that rhymes with bigger. If they don't hear the slur that sounds like for Jewish folks flying a kite, if they don't hear the racial slur for Hispanics that sounds like jetpack, if they don't hear the racial slur for Chinese that sounds like the word pink, if they do not hear the word to disparage, we'll say Vietnamese, if they don't hear a word that sounds like spook, I didn't hear any racism. So that is what I'm talking about as far as the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word. There's 6 that I will play for everyone, or actually I'm going to go ahead and read out myself. But before I do, let's do something different. So today what I'm going to do is put all the facts up front. Now, normally we kind of weave in and out when I have people on the panel, or we'll have conversation back and forth. We normally see how the conversation sways here and there, but I'm going to do something different today. Hey, what's going on, Smith? Come on, man. Nah, let's not do that. Yeah, let's not do that, man, because that's one of the things that I see people getting in trouble for, is catching strikes over what their panelists are saying or things inside the chat. So let's keep it clean, man. All right. Understood. All right. So, yeah, I appreciate it, Smith. Not a problem. Like I said, we are now into that moment in time. We are at that point in time where we now have the government and even the FCC actively targeting people. Now, I'll make mention about what happened with Jimmy Kimmel towards the end of the show. But how ridiculous is this that now the FCC is taking its prompts from the government? We saw all types of lies and accusations about Obama is using the government to target folks. Biden is using the government to target folks. Nothing ever showed this. However, we are seeing this actively being done in front of us right now. Nobody has any complaints. I'm going to address those, but let's go ahead and get started. So thank you for anyone who's out in the clouds. Thank you for anyone who's right here inside of the chat. But as you know, we always have the replay gang who will step up and check things out later. But rest assured, somewhere along the way, we're going to have our visitors, and you know who I'm talking about. So therefore, if they have any questions, well, show us the proof. I'm going to put the proof like I did before at the beginning, but I'm going to put it at the very, very beginning this time. Because again, I'm not going to go backwards and have a conversation, which is going to be disingenuous anyway. As I said before, if folks don't hear an actual racial epithet being said, they act as if there's no racism, although the discrimination is there to substantiate what's being spoken of. So let's get it on. Now, by all means, make sure if you cannot hear the words being spoken, let me know. All right, so fair use, fair use. As I was saying before, this first one here, this is, this is the vice president of the, I say again, the vice president of the United States broadcasting out of the White House, taking over Charlie Kirk's show. I believe it was for the day, but here we go. Again, let me know if you can't hear this. Fair use, fair use.
Here, live from my office in the White House complex and filling in for somebody who cannot be filled in for, but I'm going to try to do my best. My dear friend, the great Charlie Kirk. Every single person in this building, we owe something to Charlie. He was a joyful warrior for our country. He loved America. He devoted himself tirelessly to making our country a better place. He was a critical part of getting Donald Trump elected as president, getting me elected as vice president. Everyone knew him as this fearless debater, this guy who would take the conservative message into hostile places and inspire younger generations to have courage.
So, for those of us who are prior military, we know that prior to this administration, the second administration, even the first one, that would have never happened what we saw. You would have not seen any aspect of the military honoring, giving aid and comfort, doing anything, associating with someone who was a vector of what we saw of hate speech. It was inexcusable what happened to this man. I will keep saying that. This is something that never should have happened. No one should be gunned down like that. But remember, we've seen this before. Medgar Evans, Martin Luther King. We've seen that someone shot from the bushes, a coward with a gun. We have seen this before, but never in anyone's lifetime would we have ever expected our government, the White House, our president, even the vice president, to honor someone who has put out hate speech that is clearly seen throughout? And we see right now, here comes the ignorance. You're not military, receiving a paycheck from the military if you're giving political commentary. Yep. So as we see here, this is going to be one of the tenets I talk about that is called conniving speech. Now, remember that as I put this out here. So rather than sit here and do this, we're just going to go ahead and be done with the idiocy. Yeah, today is not the day for the foolishness. So going forward, I want this to be recognized here that when you see this type of commentary that's going on right now, when it's being accepted by the masses, we're literally seeing who you're going to believe, me or your lying eyes. We know what we're seeing, but if no one is going to take the opportunity to express themselves, to say, no, this is not true, what happens? Say it long enough, it becomes the truth. But say it long enough in front of people who know what the truth is, you've got conflict. But was said, instead of calling it conflict, let's go ahead and call it good trouble, because that's what we need right now. We are now at a point in time, if we look back in the 50s and 60s, where there was an effort, a concerted effort to ensure racial equality, racial justice was seen. The divide was to be closed. Whereas right now we're seeing it where racial injustice, racial inequality, and the racial divide is opening right now. We cannot sit here and make ourselves a party to this. But let's go ahead and continue on. Like I said, let's go ahead and put all the proof up front so there's no conversation later on. Now, once more in this clip, this is Charlie Kirk equating abortion to the Holocaust. So it got cut up at the very beginning, but I'm just giving you some context right now. But here we go. Fair use, fair use.
Absolutely, I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
Have a look at Charlie Kirk in action.
Rob her, happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Black crime is a major issue in our country. Why are you pushing criminal justice reform exactly? Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, the southern border is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white agenda. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. In Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Can we get that picture up, Ryan, of that Marvel's Avenger team? Now, I don't know who the person is on the left. Is the person on the left that came and did the interview with Joe, the TikTok? Your government is being run by freaks. It's like immediately I have like a flashback to a country where weren't able to do Bud Light commercials. What does being trans even mean? Is that even a real thing? It means you need therapy. We must ban trans-affirming care the entire country. I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. On young men, the lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth, and she would, no, wait, oh, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live. Would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
It's no, but it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil. But what happened? Something changed. I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends, the administration.
So you're
Again, this is not me making anything up. These are his words, not mine or anyone else's. No one is celebrating anybody's death over here. However, what we're doing is highlighting the words spoken in an individual's life. But still, there's more. Let's continue. Again, proof is right here. Now, I want you to watch if and when we get these folks to come over here, watch how they'll say, well, I haven't seen any proof. Now, this next one right here, now this takes the cake. Now, I want you to understand here what you're about to hear. The only thing that I can put out here say that this is Southern strategy, word salad. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Southern strategy, this is a coded aspect of segregation, of racism, to whereas Southern whites communicated their dislike of what was happening with the changing of America, civil rights coming into play. And for those who wanted to ensure that civil rights would be stymied or somehow stopped, they had coded expressions that they used to make sure everybody knew whose side they were on. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and take a second here. Let me go ahead and give you a breakdown of that. So the words that you would normally hear when we're talking about hiding our true intent, you would hear words like busing, states' rights. Nowadays, you hear white guilt, open borders, difference of opinion, family values, DEI, and Christian nation. If you happen to hear any of that inside of a conversation, you know that you are dealing with someone who's got a supremacist background or follows that type of ideology. Excuse me, but more on that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and get back to this. Fair use, fair use.
Was Charlie Kirk a racist? Tons of people are referencing a quote of Charlie Kirk's in which he suggests that he would be concerned for his safety if a black man were piloting a plane. But this particular quote, like so many others of Kirk's, is being completely taken out of context. Charlie Kirk did not say that he was concerned about a black man piloting a plane because he sees black people as inferior. It's actually quite the opposite. He was making a point about diversity quotas in flight school that support advancing black students in the absence of merit.
There is no such goddamn thing. The absence of merit. The whole reason why affirmative action was put into place is because there was no merit at all. Affirmative action did not give them test scores. Affirmative action made it possible for them to go to school in order to take the test. But again, notice the deflection. Notice this roundabout way. As I've said before, this would be Southern strategy speak. Yes, exactly. What the hell is she talking about? Oh, this is that deflective, that shimmy, that duck and move type stuff that you hear. Whereas I'm not going to tell you that I'm wrong. I'm going to tell you how I'm right and how you're wrong for believing whatever it is that you think is the truth, because what I'm telling you is the truth, even though she's pretty much saying, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Let's continue. Fair use.
Which is the definition of racism, because policies like these presuppose that black students are not capable of achieving the same standards of performance as white students, which anyone who is not racist will know is just simply not true. I have spent the past 3 days trying desperately to find the supposed evidence that Charlie Kirk was a racist, and I can't. And I suspect that's because he wasn't. On the contrary, it's those who hold the incredibly condescending and demeaning view that certain racial groups require special treatment that are actually spreading racist ideology. I released a long-form podcast episode on the public execution of Charlie Kirk, and if you'd like the link, the magic word is podcast.
My bad, folks, but did I not tell you that you would see this type of nonsense? Now, if anyone feels they have not seen anything racist that has been said by Charlie Kirk, by all means, put a 2 in the column. If you feel that there has been no racism that has been demonstrated as of yet from what I've proven thus far by Charlie Kirk, put a 2 in the column. If you have seen the racism that is present that she's trying to pretend that we didn't see, put a 1 in the column. I mean, honestly, what you just saw right now is what you're seeing in a mass scale. People saying, oh, no, I don't see any racism here. Oh, no, I don't know what you're saying. But there's no racism here. Yeah, well, there is racism to be seen. But again, just to look at that. So as I said before, listening to that is like listening to Charlie Kirk's disingenuous coded speech. Rob Platinum, man, where have you been? Yeah, man, welcome back here. So far for the last couple of shows, it's been Agent Smith and Hunting Wisdom holding it down here. We had a couple of supremacists who dropped in a couple of shows ago who were playing the same game of, I didn't see any racism. I took a look. Show me the proof. Show me the proof. There is no proof to be shown to folks who would not accept it from the very beginning. The whole idea is to create this type of uproar to whereas it's believed that no proof exists. But again, we're going to get through this. I've got 1 or 2 more videos, and I'm going to give you the premise of the title of the show, 6 Tenets of Supremacist Spoken Word. All right, so this next one, I don't know if anyone is familiar with it or will remember. I do. So this next one here is absolute madness. So I'm not sure if anybody remembers here, but about, I guess, a couple of months into Donald Trump's presidency back in 2017, remember the kerfuffle over Obamacare, where they were talking about, yeah, we're going to repeal it. We'll have something in 2 weeks. All right, 10 years later, there has still not been a replacement for Obamacare, and it is still going strong. Oh, yes, that's exactly what they're trying to do. That is exactly what they're trying to do, Robert. But the thing here is that there are many of us who know for damn sure that our eyes are not playing tricks on us. But the problem here is that if we are not active enough inside of our civic duties, and the main one again is voting, this is the type of environment that we have. We have supremacists who have gained control of the levers of democracy. When they try and say DEI, remember, didn't earn it. But yet, as I showed in a previous show, there are 22 people who are part of this administration right now who lost their respective races when they ran. The voters did not want them, and Donald Trump gave them positions. Notice I say gave, or dare I say gifted, inside of his administration. But yet, he wants to call folks losers. Getting from that, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So what's going to happen here is Jeffrey Lords is going to make a comparison between Martin Luther King and Donald Trump. So here is the name of, what's the name of this? Yes, at the bottom, CNN's Jeffrey Lord. Think of President Trump as the Martin Luther King of healthcare. So you should be able to find this out on YouTube. But what I will do instead, as I need to go back and do for a few other videos, I'll make sure that I include this information inside of the description. All right. Fair use, fair use. And as always, let me know if you cannot hear this.
Allison, I want to say something here that I know will probably drive.
Now, you know, when somebody says, I want to say something that might draw some fire, it's like, you know, looking over your shoulder. Yeah, I don't want to be racist, but those, you know, insert racial epithet right in between. That's what that moment was. Fair use.
Simone crazy, but think of President Trump as the Martin Luther King of healthcare.
Oh, Jeffrey.
When I was a kid, President Kennedy did not want to introduce the Civil Rights Bill because he said it wasn't popular, he didn't have the votes for it, etc. Dr. King kept putting people in the streets in harm's way to put the pressure on so that the bill would be introduced. That's what
Jeffrey,
finally
you do
worked.
understand that Dr. King was marching for civil rights because people that look like me were being beaten. Dolls were being sicked on them. Basic human rights were being withheld from these people merely because of the color of their skin. So let's not equate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a humanitarian, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, to the vagina-grabbing President Donald Trump. Oh boy.
Simone.
Damn. I was watching that live when Jeffrey Lord said that, and Simone's look. Jeffrey. No, Jeffrey, no. Now, funny enough, he lost his job. I don't know if it was directly after that, but maybe a short while thereafter. So Jeffrey Lords was terminated as a correspondent. Now, this was done back when CNN was actually still showing some backbone because we still had a government. We still had a media that was not being intimidated into taking action against television shows, against newscasters, because freedom of speech was still being respected. Now, funny enough, freedom of speech is only good now if it's being said from a conservative perspective. I got to make me an image with Trump superimposed on Martin. Oh, I think that's been done before, man. If you look out there, I think those memes are already there. So again, put a 1 in the chat if you feel that I am showing substantial evidence of discrimination, disparagement, and just straight racism. Put a 1 in the chat if you see it. Put a 2 in the chat if you feel you do not see any discrimination, disparagement, or any type of racism. 1 for racism, a 2 if you feel that at this point you have not seen any. We'll see who's watching right now. All right, and now for the coup de grace, as Bugs Bunny would say. Now, stop me, Rob. I want to say that in one of the previous shows, you may have been around when I played this. And I played this the other night. So this is an aspect of the Southern strategy. Matter of fact, before we play this, let me do this. Hold, stand fast for a second, folks. Stand fast. Mechanica. Southern strategy, yes. Before we do this next part right here, let me take a moment. Let me take a moment to discuss, or at least give you some background on the Southern strategy if you've not heard of it before. I'm pretty sure the majority of us there. Okay, yeah. All right, Rod. I thought so, Rod, that you were there when we played this. All right, so for those who are not familiar with the Southern strategy, now this is something that you will hear the majority of conservatives, white and black, try and say, oh, it's a myth. No, it is not a myth. Another thing that I like to do, which Rob and Hunting Wisdom, and I believe Agent Smith know, is that I bring the receipts. I'm going to prevent any type of statement to be made that, oh, well, you're not showing it from a reputable source. No, I prevent all that. I ensure that whatever information I provide, it is something that you yourselves can find for yourselves also. But we'll take a look at that in a moment here. But what I want to do right now is just go ahead and give you a breakdown of the Southern strategy. Southern strategy in the political history of the United States, a campaign strategy of the Republican Party actively pursued from the 1960s that initially sought to increase and preserve support from white voters in the South by subtly endorsing racial segregation, racial discrimination, and the disenfranchisement of Black voters. The strategy has also involved directly promoting conservative views on immigration, taxes, social welfare programs, law enforcement, and states' rights. Now, here's the kicker. Now, here's that part right here. And Rob can tell you, as well as Hunting Wisdom, this is one of the things that drives conservatives, Black and white, crazy when they try and say, oh, the political parties didn't switch ideologies in the 60s. That's a myth. The Southern strategy proved successful. By the late 1970s, the regular political leadership of most Southern states had switched from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party. Yes, sir. Go ahead and tell them, Rob. Tell them why your ears perk up when you hear states' rights. Take that for a second. I know we've got a 10-second delay maybe, but go ahead, Rob. Once again, tell them why your ears perk up when you hear states' rights. Let me do something while I'm waiting for your response to come through. Well, maybe the delay is a little bit longer. But ideally, most of us peak up when we hear states' rights. Never mind. Here we go. Remember last stream? This is from Smith. Remember last stream when they were asking for you to show proof when you literally showed it at the beginning of the video? Yeah, that's why we're doing this right now, Smith. We're putting everything at the front. So if we get joined by one of these extremists, we can simply say, go watch the beginning of the video. It's right there for you. And if they say, well, I didn't see the proof, then we know for a fact, well, we already know that it's a lie, it's a disingenuous play. But I want everybody here to see this on camera. Yes, ignorance is bliss, I guess. I want it to be seen that we are not wasting time with this ignorance. It is willful intentions to act as if the proof is not seen. And as I said before, if they don't hear a direct racial epithet being thrown, well, I didn't see any proof of racism. I'm still waiting for proof. You got to show me some proof. I don't see it. Well, why don't you debate me? No, I'm not going to give you any air on my platform so you can sit up here and tell these lies. No, you can debate from the chat if you want. You can throw it up here. I may listen, or I may just boot you and be done with it. Nobody over here caters to that. So I need to make sure that is known. We don't do that over here. Now, as far as Britannica itself, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys one of the main websites that I use for fact checking before I present any information. And it's called Media Bias Fact Check. This is one of the better ones that's been around for a while. And share. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that, Rob. The reason my ears perk up is because states' rights was a term used when the South was defending their right to practice slavery. That right there. Hence why they call it the Southern strategy, because coded speech is used to get your point across without ever coming out and saying, forgive my language here, but nigger, nigger, nigger. You can't say that anymore. So therefore, you had to say busing, states' rights. And what I was saying before, that is the modern way of utilizing the Southern strategy. Open borders, Christian nation, DEI. So understand, folks, when you hear that, that is Southern strategy speak. All right, so as I said before, media bias fact check. This is one of the places that you guys really need to use to check any information from any websites that you happen to be getting your information from. We might do a couple of these. You know what? Let me just play this, give you guys a shot out of what bias and credibility looks like for media bias fact check. And we'll get back on the topic here because I want this last video to get played here before we really get into our commentary. So again, what does media bias have to say about Encyclopedia Britannica? Boom, pro-science. Notice that out of the factual reporting, we have very high, mostly factual, mixed, low, and very low. We see they are rated high. All right, and here's some detail about it. Pro-science. These sources consist of legitimate science or are evidence-based through the use of credible scientific sourcing. Legitimate science follows the scientific method, is unbiased, and does not use emotional words. These sources also respect the consensus of experts in the given scientific field and strive to publish peer-reviewed science. Some sources in this category may have a slight political bias, but adhere to scientific principles. Now, the beauty of this, if you look at the detailed report, we see that it's green all the way across, damn near. Well, actually, I shouldn't say damn near, it is. With the exception of rank, it's mostly free. Yeah, so some of these sites do require money. But what we're looking at right now, high credibility. Also, we go down to failed fact checks. They have none in the last 5 years. So again, if anyone were to come through and say, well, you know, you're just lying. You're just upset because somebody else has an opinion that's different from yours. That is what I call conniving speech. It has nothing to do with a difference of opinion. It has everything to do with the facts that you disavow. Folks who cannot disprove will disavow or just flat out lie about it. Even conservative financial policy is coded racist language. Yep. I used to read the Encyclopedia Britannica when I was growing up. My parents bought us the entire library. In our bookshelf for majority of our adolescence life before my brother and I left the house, we had a bookshelf that had Encyclopedia Britannicas on it, lined up. They frame these facts as victim. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, victimhood. That is another one of these words from the Southern Strategy Playbook. When they say victimhood, okay, that's to speak that, okay, now go in on them, make the claim that, oh, blacks need to stop acting as if they've been victims. Again, numerous levels of coded speech, but fear not, we're going to get into this. All right, so for the events, I saved this one for the last part because Southern strategy is something you're going to hear me mention throughout here as we keep doing this. As always, please let me know if you cannot hear this. Fair use, fair use. Oh, and the verbiage here is graphic.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me, You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger nigger, you know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
So, does anyone want to sit here and tell me that they did not hear any racism in that man's statement of how at least they code racism so it can pass and signal to folks, yeah, no, we really need to focus on the forced busing, but also we have these open borders that are a problem. And if we were more of a Christian nation, we would not have these issues. But I really feel that the issues that we are suffering right now that is plaguing the nation has a lot to do with DEI. Do you get what I'm saying here, folks? Do you see what's happening? Yeah, that is just my little makeshift makeup made up shit here, but that's the best way that I can frame it right there. That is literally what you're dealing with when you're sitting there watching J.D. Vance. Charlie Kirk was a man of God. You know, he was a warrior for our country. You have to ask yourself, what part of the country? Again, I don't think anyone here can deny that we are not looking at racism. And I'm pretty sure that if our supremacist friends show up, they're going to come in with the same nonsense. Well, you're just telling lies right now. But that's why I wanted to put all this information up front so we can watch it splatter. But I believe I've said enough for the time being. We've got all the good stuff out of the way. So let me go ahead and now get to the part of the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word. So I was going to sit here and memorize and go through this, but I thought, you know what? Now let me read this so I can be specific. All right. I want to be precise with this. He really said that Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson didn't have the mental processing power. Yep. He said that. But notice the young lady who said Charlie Kirk really wasn't the racist. So when we're talking about the black pilot, he was talking about the absence of man. Girl, what are you talking about? Again, that is conniving speech, but listen close. I'll explain that. So this is more of an article that I thought I would write, but I'm not going to send it anywhere. I'm just going to keep it for myself and keep it for everybody here who's either watching this live or who will watch it in the, excuse me, what the hell is that about? Watch it in the replay. The one telling aspect about extremists is how they continually attempt to convince you that you didn't see that shit I did in front of you because you are the one that's delusional, which is known as the lying eye strategy. Now we know that, what is that? Watch me, whatever, right? So the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word and the receipts. Number 1, color. The primary sweet spot of disparagement. Here's an example, and you just spoke of this, Rob. Charlie Kirk disparaging Ketanji Brown, Vice President Harris, Joy Reid, Cheryl Jackson Lee, with a misleading claim of their levels of intelligence. Put a 1 in the chat if that sounds like racism. Now, the crazy thing about this I've noticed is that when you hear people make this argument about racism, oh, I wasn't talking about her race. I was talking about her intelligence. But what is the main reason that supremacists go after people of different colors with racism because they feel these individuals are intellectually inferior to them. So when you hear somebody say, oh, that wasn't a racist comment, he wasn't talking about her race, he was speaking about her intelligence, that is what's known as contradiction. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The second tenet of supremacist spoken word, control, the need for order to enforce their sense of morality and values on others. Here's another example. Charlie Kirk telling Taylor Swift to submit to her fiance because you're not in control. Again, put a 1 in the chat if that is racist, or put a 2 in the chat if you feel it is not racist, or at least disparaging, which falls under racism. Discrimination, disparagement, all part of the umbrella of racism. Number 3, conflation. The need to make comparisons of actual credibility to their falsehoods and mischaracterizations. Example, comparisons of Donald Trump and or Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King. Okay, yes, okay, I'm not crazy. My eyes are not lying to me. All right, let's continue on. Now, again, this is a list that I prepared myself just by observing for the last week of what's been going on. I felt that something needed to be said about this, so we have it on video. We have this on video, folks. Come over here and live if you want to, but the receipts stay heavy in my bag. Number 4, contradiction. Routinely undermining the core aspect of their own bigotry with conflicting statements followed by the obligatory, disingenuous double down defense. Example, and I think I just mentioned this. Charlie Kirk didn't insult Brown's, Harris's, or Reed's race. He was referring to their intelligence. Fact, I add a little bit more to this. The overriding aspect of discrimination per extremism exists around considering races other than white mentally inferior. Just the facts, folks. Again, facts don't choose sides. Facts present themselves. I'm just showing you all where to find them. These folks have the nerve to talk about a Black person's ability to process information, but yet that contradiction is a hell of a drug. Number 5, conniving speech. Evasive, pontificated, misleading, and demonstrably false commentary fomenting racist vitriol in what I call Southern strategy style mannerisms of hate speech dressed up as legitimate political discord, engaging in the use of political theater and disingenuous debate. God damn it, put a 1 in the chat if I'm telling truth about what this racism thing is, and put a 2 if you think I'm lying. You know what? I'm going to read that again. Number 5, conniving speech. Evasive, pontificated, misleading, and demonstrably false commentary fomenting racist vitriol in Southern strategy style mannerisms of hate speech, dressed up as legitimate political discord, engaging in the use of political theater and disingenuous debate. Here's an example. Blacks prowl around in groups looking to attack white people. It's a fact. Again, we know this was another aspect of Charlie Kirk that we saw in the video. Again, this is not me making up words. These aren't my words here. What I just read, blacks prowl around in groups looking to attack white people. Those were Charlie's words. How is this a lie if he's speaking for himself? All right, going in. All right, and last, now you all damn well know this is a part of the tenets of supremacist spoken word. Christ. We know without any effect, There is nothing that is left said and done if you don't sprinkle a little Jesus across the top. You know, the Lord our Father, anointed in the blood. That is highly, highly recognized when it comes to supremacist spoken word. Again, I'll say Christ. Number 6 tenets. Utilizing scripture to justify acts of racism as being ordained and divine, thus favored by a non-existent God, because we know that John Henry is an atheist. And as an atheist, I do not believe, all right? I do not have faith. Faith is nothing more than the belief in the non-existent. And then when you look at the 6 actions that negatively affect belief, all right, these are the failures in belief, or the lack, we say, because having belief means that you lack critical thinking, you lack common sense. There's not going to be a level of facts. There's not going to be a level of verification. You're not going to have a level of, let's say shared resources, all right? Shared resources that can be verified. Matter of fact, just a second here. I think I had something else for that. And critical thinking, common sense. Oh, I'm sorry. And comprehension. All right, that is the last thing. You've got to have a level of comprehension when you do this. Yep. And how often do we see the misuse of religion? I once asked somebody who was a Christian and then mentioned about how the Klan, if any of us are old enough to remember, if you look back in the 70s when you used to have stories on 60 Minutes or some other shows where they would do interviews with people from the Klan, you would see clips of the Klan in church having a good old gospel session, talking about how all the animals were supposed to be subservient to Adam, and blacks were considered to be animals. Or actually, they called us beasts. I remember watching this when I was about 6 or 7 years old, where the guy who was speaking for the Klan said, yes, we are supposed to have control over all the beasts, including these black people out here. I'm like, well, I didn't say that at 6 years of age, but I remember that's how we were presented. And that's how they represented us in their gospel, so to speak. They consider themselves God-fearing Klan. Well, yeah, if he had truly existed, he wouldn't have been a black man per se, or no, not in the area where all this took place. Yes, he would be darker skinned. We'll put it that way. He'd be darker skinned. Maybe not a black man, but he would have been darker skinned. He would not have looked like one of the Beach Boys. We can all agree on that. Oh, I hear you, Smith. Oh, shout out to you, man. I hear you. So, folks, I'll make sure I make that available also, because I want you all to have a copy of this. But again, that is what I look at as being the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word. If Abraham was born today, he would be Iraqi. Yep. The irony. Hair like wool. Now, as I said before, the biblical character called Jesus never existed. It was just a means of control that was exacted, that has been what I call the oldest form of indoctrination that is out here. People will lose their minds if they hear what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with this, because the fact that I don't fear anything that does not exist. All you have to do is ask one simple question and watch them break down. outside of the Bible, per empirical evidence, where in recorded world history has a man ever walked on water? And then you will get everything about, oh, the Lord has his way when he walks and he talks. You know, it's not for you to make this. Oh, shit, here we go. So you're going to make a rule. You are going to make a rule and make statements of just incredulous nonsense. But then I'm wrong if I question you. Because you got to have faith. Why must you see? You must believe. No. Critical thinking, comprehension, common sense, facts, evidence, shared world history. That is what is lacking in belief. Yes, the Bible has the best tall tales. Now, funny enough, for those of us from the South, they used to have competitions that was called the tall tale competition to see who can tell the biggest lie. But I digress just a moment. Did I finish? So again, we were talking about Christ, the last of the 6 tenets. Christ, utilizing scripture to justify acts of racism as being ordained and divine, thus favored by a non-existent God. Example, Charlie Kirk believes in the Christian nationalist concept of the 7 Mountains Mandate, which calls on far-right Christians to control not just all government, but media, business, and education, for starters. So we're going to get into this. That is something that I came across today that I realized when I watch and see what's happening around us, no one has given this any consideration. Look at what's happening when it comes to institutions, education. We've seen that the administration has cut off any type of funding for any school that is teaching illegal DEI. Now remember, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's what DEI stood for. And then towards the early part of this year, DEI, for whatever reason, went to being didn't earn it, which we know is foolish and a lie, because as I said before, we have 22 people who lost their respective races for government who were given jobs in this current administration. So we know who DEI stands for. We know who our didn't earn it folks are. However, if we look at the level of intimidation, the bullying that has gone on, universities that are having funding cut. Matter of fact, just recently, Hispanic universities had all of their funding, if not the majority of it, all of it cut. And then Trump has turned around in this administration and given it to HBCUs. I say again, he cut funding for Hispanic Hispanic universities and institutes of learning and gave the money to HBCUs. Why is that? Because we see that they are doing their best to try and extradite or deport as many Hispanics out of the country as possible. So therefore, the common sense thing, and this is me just looking at it from a perspective of how everything's playing out, they're getting rid of the folks who they think that will not be here because they actually are this bold, thinking they can get away with this. We'll take the money from them, get them out of here. We'll give it to the blacks because we know they're going to be here longer, but they also know that there will be blacks who will inform on others. So therefore, they still have their claws in our communities with these black conservatives, AKA black conservative comfort on the plantation nonsense individuals. Yeah, I said it. But anyway, folks, this is what we're seeing now. DEI has now become division, extortion, and intimidation. I call it Trump DEI. You've heard me call this Trump DEI for months, and we are literally seeing this. Division, extortion, intimidation. Look at what's happening with universities. Look at what happened with law firms, trying to squeeze them out of $200 million of pro bono work and threatening to take away their security clearances, all this type of nonsense. Look, USAID, Minority Business Development Agency, looking at the expansion of ICE, getting rid of student loans, but turning around and giving $50,000 signing bonuses to ICE agents to include also if they want their student loans paid for. Hey, if you got a problem with student loans, you can come work for us. All this money that's being thrown down at the southern border. Again, Southern strategy talk, open borders. All that money that is being poured down there right now is from all the areas where they have pulled back money that was previously allocated. So of course they've got a lot of money. The Trump administration has turned the government into a cash cow. So there is money to give people pay increases. There's money to give signing bonuses, all of that because of the fact that places like USAID lost their funding. Again, universities losing their funding, law firms losing funding unless they give free pro bono work and then expect to get their crumbs back. Let us keep going. So just a moment ago, I just now mentioned what I called, I shouldn't say what I called, but I mentioned the 7 Mountain Mandate. Whoops. Share screen. All right, so here we go. Now, if you have never heard of this before, what I've just mentioned to you right now, take this into consideration. Take into consideration what we're seeing in television, what we're seeing in education, what we're seeing in the business arena, what we're seeing when it comes to religion, what we're seeing what's happening in sports. Look at how this administration is getting its hands into everything. And after I read this to you, I need you all to go back, do a reassessment, and decide whether or not you're going to be active in getting the word out and making sure everybody gets to the voting box this 2026 season, as well as 2028. The 7 Mountain Mandate, also 7 Mountains Mandate, 7M, 7MM, or 7 Mountains Dominionism is a dominionist conservative Christian ideology within evangelical Christianity, particularly independent charismatic groups. It holds that there are 7 aspects of society that believers seek to dominate: family, religion, education, media, arts and entertainment, business, and government. Now, let me go back and just make sure everyone saw this, all right? The areas that they choose to dominate or seek to dominate: family, religion, education, media, arts and entertainment, business, and government. Now, out of everybody who may be in the chat or floating out in the crowd, have you ever heard of the 7 Mountains Mandate prior to me mentioning it right now? If you have ever heard of this before me making mention of it right now, put a 1 in the chat. Put a 2 in the chat if you have never heard anything about the 7 Mountain Mandate. I'll wait for a second. All right, I see you, Robert. I see you, Smith. 2. Yep. So you would not believe how many people have not heard this, but it all makes sense if you stop and think about it. Now, let me know by putting a 1 in the chat if what we're seeing right now in America, if it all makes sense based on me telling you about the 7 Mountain Mandate. Put a 1 in the chat if everything makes sense now, what is happening in the world right now, based on you hearing about the 7 Mountain Mandate right now. Put a 2 in the chat if you still feel that it doesn't make any sense to you what's happening in the world right now, even though I've introduced you to the 7 Mountain Mandate. All right, so there's the ones. So as of right now, no one should be surprised at all about what is happening right now. We are watching the 7 Mountain Mandate take place in front of us, And we have folks in our camps who are too, forgive my language, effing stupid and ignorant to take place in anything because, cuz, both of them sides ain't no good. You know what I'm saying? Or I really feel that the open borders is an issue that we really need to focus on, because the DEI is what's keeps. You can't have a conversation with anybody about this who will take it seriously if they're not looking at what we are seeing here. You can't do it. But here's what I really want you guys to see right about now. Now, we have a list of prominent followers. We see Lauren Boebert as a part of it. Mike Johnson, who's leading the House right now. But I want you to take a look at that last dude right here. Does everybody see that name right here? If not, let me go ahead and highlight it for you. Don't be surprised if you recognize this name. Charlie Kirk. Yep. Now just think about that video that I played of him, his greatest hits. Think about that. Think about everything that came out of his mouth. Think about the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word. Think about the 7 mountain mandate, and take a look and see that Charlie Kirk is not a part of this also. And then act as if you can't honestly see what is happening here. As I said before, we are looking at the extension of January 6th going on right now. Project 2025 was an absolute failure. So as a result, we see them trying to change the voting rules. We also see them trying to redistrict right in the middle of the consensus cycle, because they already see the outline of what's happening. So therefore, they've got to get as many immigrants out of the United States as possible so they do not vote against them. Those who stay, all right, well, we're going to find a way to criminalize you, and then we're going to send you somewhere that you don't have a choice. They're sending people to Africa now. When was anything about sending people back or deporting having to do with sending people to places that they never came from? Now, there was a group, I want to say there's 1 or 2 Latinos that had been, or that they were threatening to send overseas. I believe also in Djibouti, there was about 11 or 12 folks who were deported, some who had never been to Africa, but they were sent to Africa. I don't even know what became of that story because they stopped tracking it back in late June or early July. Pay attention, folks. We now have American citizens being ejected from the country and being sent to places that they aren't even from, have never been. It is becoming, Tom, let me bring it back a bit. Let me stay where we are right now. Again, as I said before, Charlie Kirk was an active believer of the 7 mountains mandate. Donald Trump as well. So let me just go back up to the top and take a look for this in your spare time. Like I said, I'll make sure that I have some information available inside of the description. Also, take a look. This article is part of a series on Christian nationalism in the United States. What are the principles? Anti-abortion movement, anti-abortion violence, authoritarianism, Christian fundamentalism, Christian identity, Christian persecution complex. Never say I don't provide information that gives you the ability to find out what is happening around you. Yep, it's interchangeable. They're literally one and the same. Now, I will say this right now, and the majority of people who know me from high school, from college, from military, everybody knows that I am not racist. I do not have an issue with anyone white. I do not have an issue with anyone black, Asian, Hispanic. I have an issue with ignorant people who happen to be black or white, Asian or Hispanic. Racism has no color. that needs to be remembered. It has no color. All right, so moving on. Now, what we're going to do now, so we've been at this about an hour and 10 here. So I hope everyone has been well informed by what I presented here. So what I want to do now is go ahead and take a step back. I'll leave that on here. So this is The Guardian. This is one of sources that I pick information from. And let me do this before we look at The Guardian. The Guardian plus media bias fact check. Let's just take a quick look at the report card from here, because a lot of these places are not going to be able to go spotless. And that's because they may not have a staff who's going to fact check as deep as sites like Britannica, Reuters, or even C-SPAN. But still, I want to take a moment here because we're going to be looking at an article done by this organization, and I want you to have an idea of what this organization does as far as, or what they're known for as far as their journalism. Again, folks, receipts. All right, so what does media bias say about the Guardian newspaper, which is an English newspaper, but they have U.S. offices as well. Now we can see that they are left center. Now left center and right center is what I still consider to be tolerable. But the biggest thing that we need to look out for is how they rate in the factual reporting. So we can see right here that, again, they are left center, which means that they're more, a little bit left leaning. They're still somewhat centered. But as a result, they've got a different rating than we saw with Britannica. Left center bias. These media sources have a slight to moderate liberal bias. They often publish factual information that utilizes loaded words, wording that attempts to influence an audience by appeals to emotional stereotypes to favor liberal causes. These sources are generally trustworthy for information, but may require further investigation. So a left center bias we see here leaves them with a rating of mixed. But let's look at the detailed report. So they are given a left center, which means, okay, that's still good. That's still within the bounds of where it's not into extremism or fully left, but nonetheless, still, that's a good rating. The factual reporting, again, is mixed, which means that they probably had some failed fact checks, but ideally their credibility is medium. But still being at medium credibility, that means that, again, as it says here, these sources are generally trustworthy for information, but may require further investigation. So let's investigate a little bit further and see what they have as far as fact checks. All right, just as I said, they've got a few fact checks, or maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One inaccurate and 4 false. So as I said before, depending upon how large the organization, or depending upon how many fact checkers that happen to be on file for that organization, you will see a lot of agencies run into some fact checks fails within a 5-year period. The thing here is, if you start looking at failed fact checks where people have 12, 13, or 15, that is called questionable resource, or damn near unreliable resource. So let's back up, and since we're here, shit, we're already here. Okay, give me an extra 10 minutes, folks. So take my watch off so I can get comfortable here. So this was The Guardian. So how about we look at CNN? What do we have for CNN? All right, they have hit with left center as well. along with left center bias, but they are mostly factual. So even though they're left center bias, just like The Guardian was, they are seen as mostly factual, which is a higher rating. These media sources, oh, you know what? We've already read left center bias. No need to do that here. But we can see that they've got a rating again of left center bias. Let's go down and take a look and see what they have for fact checks. Okay, so they have 2 failed fact checks. One was false, but they corrected that. And then there was another one, low scientific credibility. Greenland's ice sheet has melted to a point of no return, according to new study. So we can see why they have, what is that again? They have a left center bias, but also we can see why they're mostly factual. So they had less than The Guardian. The Guardian had 5 failed fact checks. They had 2. Hence, they've got mostly factual. All right, let's back this up. How about MSNBC? What do we have for MSNBC? Boom. So they are sitting over at left. Notice there's no left-centered bias. We have got left bias. And their factual reporting is mixed. For left bias, these media sources are moderately to strongly biased towards liberal causes through story selection and or political affiliation. They may utilize strong loaded words, wording that attempts to influence an audience by using appeal to emotional stereotypes, publish misleading reports, and omit information reporting that may damage liberal causes. Some sources in this category may be untrustworthy. So if you hit left bias, that means that you are pretty much slanting. All right. You are to a point whereas you are clearly showing favoritism of information, but still they came out of this with a mixed. So let's take a look and see what we have for failed fact checks. By the way, medium credibility. Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And out of these 7 failed fact checks, there's a couple of pants on fire. Says President Donald Trump is talking about exterminating Latinos. Pants on fire. Bloomberg spent $500 million on ads. The U.S. population is 327 million. He could have given each American 1 million and still have money left over. Pants on fire. So who do we have on the liberal bastion of journalism that is the highest standard? Well, that would be C-SPAN. Now take a look at this, folks. Boom. Right in the middle. Now, even being least biased is considered to be a bias, but nonetheless, as you can see right here, their factual reporting is at the very top, very high. And again, you see least biased. Least bias. These sources have minimal bias and use very few loaded words, wording that attempts to influence an audience by using an appeal to emotion or stereotypes. The reporting is factual and usually sourced. These are the most credible media sources. What do you have to say about that? Least biased, factual reporting, but here's the biggest thing, high credibility. And as far as failed fact checks, none in the last 5 years. So again, folks, I just want to give you a quick run through on what it looks like to use something that allows you to gauge where you get your information from. but you know I'm not going to get out of here that fast, right? Rob, Agent Smith, do you really think I'm going to leave without us looking at the other guys? How about Fox News? Now, again, this is not me being biased. I'm letting media bias fact check give us an assessment of these news organizations. So we've done the left side of the aisle. Now let's take a look at the right. I know we're here a little bit longer, but I don't think I do this enough. So I just want to kind of inject this in as far as how to verify where you get your news from. Oh, yes, it is, man. Now, I've got 3 other sites that I normally use, but this is just the abbreviated version. I may need to go back and do another show where I go down the list of Media Bias Fact Check, Ad Fontes, All Sides, and then I believe another one is called Ground News, which does an assessment of the 3 biggest ones at once and does a comparison that you can see right there on the screen. Now, put a 1 in the chat if you are already familiar with Media Bias Fact Check to check the organizations where you get your news from. And then, of course, put a 2 if this is something that you were not familiar with prior to tonight. Oops. All right, Fox News. Does anyone want to place a bet on where Fox News falls on the scale? Oh, okay, Smith, you didn't know about this. Yeah. Well, the next time you see a news article, oh, Rob, same thing, Rob. You didn't know about this? Again, I'm happy to help. So again, the next time you see a news article that looks questionable, go ahead, go to Media Bias, type in the name of that organization and Media Bias Fact Check and see what they have to say about this, because Media Bias Fact Check is part of the International Fact Checking Association. So you have the Poynter Institute, I believe, that runs that, but you have other places such as PolitiFact, Snopes, Reuters. There are numerous agencies out here who are part of the International Fact Checking Association. I think they're either, should be the IFC. But these folks take the time to ensure that whatever information that you're reading, you've got the background to know on whether or not it is bullshit or something factual that you can work with. But again, Fox News. We'll do BBC next. I know that the Daily Mail, being that I used to live over in the UK, the Daily Mail is one of those wash rags that you just wash your ass with for the most part. All right. Survey says Fox News. Boom. So they are far to the right. But here's the problem with being to the right. Notice that it says mixed, but we've got this questionable source. That's a bad thing. So what is a questionable source? A questionable source exhibits one or more of the following: extreme bias, consistent promotion of propaganda, conspiracies, poor or no sourcing to credible information, a complete lack of transparency, and or is fake news. Fake news is the deliberate attempt to publish hoaxes and or disinformation for profit or influence. Sources listed in the questionable category may be very untrustworthy and should be fact-checked on a per article basis. Please note, sources on this list are not considered fake news unless specifically written in the reasoning section for that source. So let's take a look here at the detailed report. So the questionable reasoning: conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, propaganda, poor sources, numerous failed fact checks, and they're almost sitting at 7 when it comes to the bias rating because they're so far to the right. And we have low credibility. So ask yourself, why is it that people listen to Greg Gutfeld, Brett Baer, Ainsley Smith? Why do people even bother listening to Fox News? Because that's where they want to get their information from if it's not conservative, or if it's not coming from the liberal side. We've got to get it from somewhere. I forgot who it was who made the statement. I think it may have been Rupert, who owns Fox News. He said that if Richard Nixon would have had a Fox News back when he was going through the Watergate scandal, he may have come out unscathed and our news may have been skewed even further back. Rupert Murdoch, I don't know why I couldn't remember his name, but I believe that was either Rupert Murdoch or his business partner. But let's go a little bit further down here and let's take a look at the fact checks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 failed fact checks. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 9 fact checks were pants on fire. Yes, ma'am. Oh boy. Now keep in mind, these folks got sued to the tune of what? $797 million. And I remember looking at the article the other day that was going over the trial. And one of the lines I do remember is it said that Fox News was responsible for falsehoods being stated. And the statement that came back from Fox News, I'm paraphrasing, was like, we recognize that there were some statements that were not accurate. They did not say we take responsibility for the inaccurate statements. No, they did not say that. They simply acknowledged that there were inaccurate statements. A complete difference. I see what you did there, Rob. But yeah, they claim to be fair and balanced. But how can you be fair and balanced when you've got a low credibility rating, to include also being seen as a questionable source with pseudoscience, misinformation, propaganda? But still, people keep running to Fox News to get their information. So everyone, I want you to keep in mind, if you ask the question, so where do you get your news from? And they start hemming and hawing, then you can best believe that it's most likely going to come from some type of right-wing organization. But since we already opened the can on this, let's keep going. Oh, and just for the outro here, one more time. Conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, propaganda, poor sources, numerous failed fact checks, low credibility, Fox News, mixed reporting, and they are right-wing as we know it. Oh, snap. Who's next? Should we do Newsmax? Sure, why not? Again, this isn't me, folks. This is just me showing you where to find the facts. Facts do not choose sides. And again, these folks are part of the international fact checkers who have got rank, or they are recognized as being an organization or being a part of this organization that ensures the most accurate information is assessed. So what do we have for Newsmax? Oh, shit. We have extreme. And people brag about Newsmax and the information they get. Oh, damn. They are one step below being in the basement. So we see that they are extreme and their factual reporting is low. And we have questionable source again. So there's no need for us to go ahead and read this because we read that with Fox News, right? But let's at least look at their detailed report. Same thing. Conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, propaganda, fake news. But look at this. Failed fact checks. Yes. And the truth shall set you free, John, if he'd ever existed, right? So again, I ask, if you have never seen this site to gauge your news sources, put a 1 in the chat. If you knew about it prior to me showing you right now, put a 2 in the chat. So let's go ahead and see what this horrendous look of oh shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 failed fact checks. Damn, Carl, what's up, man? Oh, snap. Carl, were you on one of the earlier shows when I did this about 5 or 6 months ago where I went through all 4 sites, or did you already know about this? I can't recall, but thanks for showing up, man. So again, look at the level of failure in the fact checks. But again, remember Newsmax. I can't recall what their tagline is, but I know truth is not it. Mr. Anderson. Oh. So again, conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, propaganda, fake news, failed fact checks, low credibility assessed to Newsmax. Oh, but you know what? We're already in it right now. Let's go ahead and let's air it out. One American News. Can we be any more extreme than Newsmax? Probably not. Same thing. They are on the extreme side of the news reporting also. Questionable sources, low factual reporting. And why should we be surprised? Poor sourcing, conspiracy theories, propaganda, numerous failed fact checks. Far right, but also low credibility. So let's see what we have for fact check failure for these guys. Oh shit, I almost couldn't get it all on the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, God. 14 failed fact checks. Wow. Pants on fire, false, false, multi, false, unsupported. It's now again. Mr. Anderson, FP Agent Smith, I'm not fearful of you. Okay, segue, guys. Remember that ill-ass scene in the very first Matrix where they had Morpheus sitting in the chair and Trinity and Neo showed up with the helicopter shooting guns through the windows? What was Agent Smith saying? You're like a disease. You're a virus. Oh, you know what? I may sit down and watch that tomorrow just because of you two guys. All right, yo, folks, for the replay gang, shout out to Agent Smith and Carl Anderson. Woo, but anywho, folks, poor sourcing, conspiracy theories, propaganda, numerous failed fact checks, far right, low credibility. But last but not least, I can't leave without throwing some shade at Steve Bannon. Breitbart. We've had about a good 15 or 20 minute sidebar here, but still. Bend this spoon before we leave. Oh, by all means, folks, let me know if you're having a good time with what's going on. HQ. Evening. All right, so we've seen the best of the best and the worst of the worst just about. So let's see what we get here from Breitbart. Oh man, they are just so far up in the extreme side. But funny enough, they've got a rating of mixed, which makes them a questionable source. So we've already seen what questionable source, left bias, left center bias, and center looks like, or which is least bias. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the fact check is. But before that, let's take a look at this. Extreme right. So Breitbart is as far right as you can go with right-wing information that is predominantly disinformation. That's clearly what you're dealing with, disinformation. Hey, appreciate that, Smith. Go out and let people know here. I told you, man, all I do is facts and accountability over here. I am not going to tell you anything that has not already been verified before I check it out. And if people want to know where I got the information from, you can see the sources that I leaned on to provide the same information that you're viewing right now. So if we go to the bottom, how many failed fact checks do we think we're going to have with Breitbart? All right, not as extreme as One American News, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With one pants on fire, the rest of them lies, aka false. I kid. Like I say, folks, my receipt bag comes heavy. All right, so I believe we beat this to death, but understand now, if you want to verify where your information is coming from, this is one of many sites. So what I probably need to do is another video that gives the same aspect of the sites we took a look at from different fact checkers, because even some of these fact checkers actually have a different way of measuring. So you have to go with the tiebreaker. So you have media bias, you have all sides, then you have ad fontes, ADFONTES, ad fontes, and then there's ground news. But I will do a show here in the coming weeks just to do an assessment so you can see the other ones that are out here. Yeah, when Smith came through the first time, was about 3 or 4 months ago, we had to have a conversation. I'm glad you stuck around just to see here, because again, I'm not trying to change anyone's perspective overall per se. What I like to do is give everyone the opportunity to see something that they are not. All I can do is show you where the facts are. It's up to you to accept it. And I'm glad you took the time to take a look at this, Smith. Nothing but facts in these streams. Yep. Now, one of the streams that I did earlier that Wisdom and I were on, folks, is when I took a look at a lot of the lies that Black conservatives told Blacks. Now, I may go back and revisit one of those lies at a time instead of doing a full show, getting them smashed in. So be on the lookout where I may bring that show back, but I'm going to look at one of these lies in particular. I think the one that I may start out with would be the man of the house rule, which is centered around the lie that the federal government kicked Black men out of the home. No, they did not. I wouldn't tell you this if I couldn't prove it, folks. But we'll hold on to that one for later. Let's stick with where we are right now. So again, the topic tonight, we're talking about the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word and receipts. So hopefully everyone has seen the majority of everything that we've had the chance to review, that there are no lies that I'm telling you when I say Charlie Kirk was racist. If anyone does not believe me, feel free to go to the first 15, 20 minutes of the show. We covered this. What was that? A kid in place to say, play, don't play. If you're a star, they let you do it. Yeah, so basically, again, when we get to that topic, I want to make sure that, as I do normally when all you guys join me, I will source it from top to bottom. I'll show you where it started and show you where the lies lay and the truth that comes out of it. Now, as is anything with anyone who is confronted with a lie that they've grown up with, it's hard to take it away from them. It's sort of like when we talk about the biblical character, the mythical individual, Jesus. You cannot take Jesus away from Black folks. They will swear, no, not my Jesus. People, the man never existed. It was a concept, but we'll do that show also. All right, so what we were looking at originally before we got taken away on making sure that we have facts or fiction, we were looking at Charlie Kirk's legacy of racism and hatred, which is literally what we have seen. You're gonna have to pry my last, my cold dead hands. Yes, sir. So we got started when I was talking about the Guardian, but I wanted to give everyone a background assessment of what type of information we were working with based upon the organization who put it out. Charlie Kirk, in his own words, prowling blacks and the Great Replacement. Now, again, I'll say this one more time. Put a 1 in the chat for those of you who have been here who feel that I have done more than enough to show that Charlie Kirk was a racist. Put a 2 in the chat for those of you who have been here the entire time who think there has not been any proof that I presented to show that Charlie Kirk was a racist. And put a 3 in the chat if you just got here and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. All right, we've got our first one for Hunting Wisdom saying that based upon the information that I've shared, I've given ample proof that Charlie Kirk was a racist. Robert Platinum. All right, there's a 1. All right, the far-right commentator didn't pull his punches when discussing his bigoted views on current events. Now, folks, I just want to go ahead and say right now that obviously John Henry is not putting words in anybody's mouth. John Henry, third person, is not showing you information that favors what he wants to talk about. I'm simply finding organizations that are high in credibility who are talking about the same topics that we're all seeing, to where people are pretending that we are not seeing racism. Watch me, watch me. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? My vision ain't blurry. Oh, and we have the definition for the night. Racism. The belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. And it all comes back to intellect, as we mentioned earlier, or should I say, as I mentioned earlier. Nothing is more aggravating than getting into a circular argument, which I don't anymore, with someone of a supremacist ideology who will again make a statement, oh, well, Charlie Kirk wasn't talking about the race of those black women who said they didn't have the ability to process information. He was talking about their intelligence, not their race, which we know is a disingenuous statement, because based on what we just read and what I've said, with white supremacists, all right, again, you have white people, you have black people, but you have white people who are racist and you have black people who are racist. But overall, when you start talking about intelligence with a white supremacist or even a black supremacist, but nonetheless with the white supremacists primarily, the whole aspect of them being disparaging about other races is based upon intelligence. So therefore, anyone trying to tell you, oh, well, when he was talking about that black woman, he wasn't talking about her race. He was merely talking about her intelligence. That is disingenuous and a contradiction. And what I will do before we close the show out, I will go back over the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word for those of you who joined us late. So that was the tenet or the paramount aspect of the show, the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word. And I'll do that one more time, just so everyone leaves in the note to recognize that, no, you're not crazy in what you're seeing. The Vice President of the United States hosted Charlie Kirk's show out of the White House. That is a fact. That is not me celebrating the man's death. That is me pointing out the fact that the Vice President of the United States from the White House was celebrating Charlie Kirk's life. All right, so moving into this, Charlie Kirk, the far-right commentator and ally of Donald Trump, was killed on Wednesday doing what he was known for throughout his career, making incendiary and often racist and sexist comments to large audiences. Like I said, I think we've done the 1-2 count long enough to know that this article being read is not lying. If anyone thinks I'm lying, or if the article is lying, go back and watch this show, especially the first 15 minutes. I don't think I've left any stone unturned about whether or not this man was a racist. If it was current and controversial in U.S. politics, chances are that Kirk was talking about it on his podcasts and on the podcasts of friends and adversaries, and especially on college campuses where he would go to debate students. Notice he didn't debate the professors. It was always the students. Kirk spent much of his adult life defending and articulating a worldview aligned with Trump and the MAGA movement, accountable to no one but his audience. He did not shy away in his rhetoric from bigotry, intolerance, exclusion, and stereotyping. Here's Kirk in his own words. Many of his comments were documented by Media Matters for America. I forgot to list them here, but a progressive nonprofit that tracks conservative media. Here we go. Get my hand out of the row. Okay. All right. On the issues of race. Again, these are Charlie Kirk's words that if you do not hear them, or excuse me, if you did not hear them during the first 15, 20 minutes of this show, then you can read them here and then go back and check the first 15 to 20 minutes of the show. And you can see that he was clearly telling lies and discriminating in his speech. All right, on race. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. The Charlie Kirk Show, 23 January, 2024. I want to say that was 2025, but still, again, that was one of Charlie's quotes. Actually, you heard that tonight in the clip. I think there's about 9 to 11 different clips of him being disparaging, and that was one of them. If you're a WNBA pot-smoking black lesbian, do you get treated better than a United States Marine? All right, that aspect is conflation. And I think he was talking about Brittany Griner at the time. And that was on his show, 8 December 2022. Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. It's happening more, but goddamn it, that's a lie. And the fact that he had the brass to sit there and tell it. But again, just like Trump, he knows whatever he says, his folks will take that for granted. And then, of course, who backs him up? Fox News, billed out for $797 million for lies, but folks still go to them. Questionable source, by the way. One America News, questionable source. Breitbart, questionable source. Newsmax, questionable source. You have also what the Epoch Times, Washington Examiner, Red State. It's a litany of lies. But again, you got media bias fact check that you can use to verify the information that you're getting from these news organizations. If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder, is she there because of her excellence or is she there because of affirmative action? Charlie Kirk Show, 3 January 2024. Oh, and here's that big one, folks. Here we go. If we would have said that Joy Reid, Michelle Obama, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called racists. Now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, isn't this interesting, folks? You heard that on this show tonight. You heard that in the clip, and you're also seeing this in an organization that has proven to still be credible. Well, medium credibility, but nonetheless, it is it is substantiating what I put down. There's a correlation here. Let's keep it going. Now, when it comes to debate, we record all of it so that we put it on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. Again, conflation. That's when civil war happens because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity. Kirk discussing his work in an undated clip that circulated on X after his killing. Prove me wrong. Kirk's challenge to students to publicly debate him during the tour of colleges he was on when he was assassinated. Well, my statement was, instead of trying to prove you wrong, what made you believe that you were right? How do I prove you wrong other than by doing what we're doing now, showing the words that you use, which were lies and can be debunked? So you see where this goes on to, folks. So this is just a running list of him being disparaging, whether it be individuals, ideologies. This was just him on a tear. Now, going one step back. Now, recall where we played that clip of Donald Trump being compared to Martin Luther King, or as Jeffrey Lord said, Donald Trump is the Martin Luther King of healthcare. Yeah, so HQ, if you're still hanging out, that's towards the beginning of the show. You know what, Hunting, we need to go ahead and get back into time stamping. If you don't get it done, maybe this weekend in between me studying, I'll go ahead and try and take care of it. But yeah, I still have some time stamping that I need to do for the previous two shows here. So again, comparing Charlie Kirk to MLK is a disrespect to King's legacy. Now, let's not forget here, he had also disparaged Martin Luther King by saying that he was not a good man, to the point in another article, he was even trying to say that all the worship that Dr. King was getting was a myth. Yes, he was. Well, thank you, ma'am. And again, if you don't get to it, I'll take care of it. Or just if you get to it before I do, just let me take a look at it before I go ahead and post it out there. But yes, we need to go ahead and timestamp this to make it a little bit easier for folks to go through. Oh, you know what? I am sorry, folks. I'm doing this by a tab, aren't I? So let me go back. And since we don't have any audio here, we're just going to do entire screen. That way I don't keep talking past stuff. You guys are probably wondering, what the hell am I talking about? All right, so again, comparing Charlie Kirk to MLK is a disrespect to King's legacy. News surrounding the assassination of conservative political activist Charlie Kirk has quickly become a trending topic. The 31-year-old Illinois native and one of the more recent rising voices of the MAGA movement in the Republican Party was shot and killed at Turning Point USA event at the Utah Valley University campus on September 10th. Recent reports have been comparing him to the late activist Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One meme in particular depicts Kirk next to King, Kennedy, and Jesus. So, Natasha, I appreciate the information here, but you may want to go back and make sure that you do a little bit more proofreading. Not taking a slap at you for that, but just simply saying that, hey, if we're going to say certain things, provide information, we got to make sure we're a little bit more accurate. But I can validate that what you're saying is true. So it's just a typo. But what can be verified about this is true. This did happen. So thumbs up. Thank you for the information. Now, I want you to look at this, people. Look at this. Abraham Lincoln, John F. K., Martin Luther King, Charlie Kirk, and Jesus. Now, first off, as I said before, Jesus, no, didn't exist. And if you are looking at Jesus, what you are actually seeing is an image of Ptolemy I Soter. This was his fictionalized or deified image of Serapis. Whether Christians realize it or not, before Jesus was worshipped throughout Europe, Serapis. Oh, you're getting a black screen? All right, well, let's do this. Let me go back. Hold up. Just lost it. Let me bring that back up just a minute. I did not know that screen went black. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just stay with the tabs. Charlie Kirk compared to Martin Luther King. Thanks for speaking up, Wisdom. I never would have known that. I would have just kept on going. Plus San Antonio Observer. There we go. So as I keep saying, folks, if there's something I'm doing and you don't see it, you need to let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep running. Oops. Pardon me for a second. I've got all this beeping going on over here. The screen is black. All right. Whoops. Missed that. So I'm just going to go back to the tab thing here. Obviously, that was working. All right, everybody. Let me know if you can see the screen now. So I'm just going to go back to doing this in a tab here. So what I was saying here is that you see that you got Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Charlie Kirk, and Jesus. As I was saying before, what you're looking at here is an image, or has been modified for the most part, but still, this is Ptolemy I Soter, one of the first white pharaohs of Egypt. Jesus was a concept, came to be in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea, voted in by 318 bishops to be the representative of what people know now today in the world as Christianity. The individual by the name of Serapis is who was worshipped throughout Europe, even as far as the United Kingdom and Ireland, before the concept of Jesus ever came to be known. Maybe we'll do a show about that also, most likely. But nonetheless, what we're seeing here is, as the Christians would say, absolute blasphemy. Bernice King reacts to a meme comparing Charlie Kirk's shooting to MLK and Jesus' death. I get tired, writes Dr. Bernice King. The youngest daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is expressing dismay over the publication of an image mentioning her father in relation to the killing of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. The image was posted by Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida and depicted Charlie Kirk alongside MLK, Jesus, and former presidents Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy with the headline, "All because of words." So let me know here, guys, when it catches up, if you're still getting a black screen or if you can actually see this enlarged photo here. All because of words. So what they're trying to say here is that because of their words, these men were killed. Now, I will say this. This is disingenuous. Now, this is, again, conflation. All right, thanks, Smith. All right, thanks, Hunting. So this is one of those tenets of supremacist spoken word. This is the conflation aspect. Yes, we all knew these men were shot or assassinated, in Jesus' case, or the biblical character of Jesus crucified. But they're trying to say that because of the words they spoke, their lives were ended. But out of all these men here, with the exception of Charlie Kirk, these men spoke of peace, unity. Charlie Kirk did not. Now, if his words were presumed to be unity, it's because of the ideology of hate speech that was being spoken by him. The rhetoric, as I said before, Charlie Kirk, when he spoke, it was Southern strategy styled hate speech dressed up as legitimate political discord, which engaged in political theater and disingenuous debate. Southern strategy speech, open borders, busing, states' rights, strong police force, DEI, Christian nation, all of that type of speech is a break off here, or shearing off of the Southern strategy, whereas you're using coded expressions to still relay your intent. We don't want to say nigger, nigger, nigger anymore. No, as you heard inside the video by Lee Atwater, oh, we can't say that because that hurts us now. We'll say busing. We'll say, DEI nowadays. We'll say states' rights. We'll say everything except those racial epithets. Because if we do not use those racial epithets, then we can say, I didn't see any racism. Of course, then you get this disingenuous conversation. Well, there was no proof. Miss me with that. Oh, shit, folks, we have hit the 2-hour mark. So obviously we are getting some information in here. Normally, I don't go this long unless I am getting feedback from the folks, which I am getting, to include also the information requires us to delve a little bit deeper. So still, I've got 1 or 2 things left on here we can go through. Let me get a few things here. So that article, like all the others, I will go ahead and make sure is going to be a part of the description. All right, so let's go ahead and get down into the wind down moment. So we talked a little bit about the Christian nationalism aspect. So because of that, I thought I'd end the show on a couple of notes here. So what is prominent in the 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word? Remember the last one, which was Christ. Now the tenets from the top here, let's see. We have color. We have control. We have conflation. We have conniving speech. We have contradiction. And then we have Christ. 6 tenets of supremacist spoken word. And we'll close the show out with those again. But for right now, I asked the question here a little bit earlier. Is there anywhere in the U.S. Constitution, and I said citing, but I've got my braces in, so it sounds like I said citing instead of citing, which is the C. Is there anywhere in the United States Constitution citing America as being a Christian nation? And the response I got, no. The United States Constitution does not declare America a Christian nation. In fact, the First Amendment prohibits the government from establishing a religion, ensuring religious freedom for all. The Constitution explicitly forbids religious tests for public office and the establishment of any religion by Congress. While the Declaration of Independence mentions a creator, historians and legal scholars emphasize the Constitution's foundation in secular governance and popular will rather than religious preference. So if you want to get information similar to this, now I say similar only because of AI, depending upon how often you ask the question, because AI is now a part of this, you will see the wording start changing. It's not going to be consistent anymore. There is some changes if you were to ask this question a few times and AI would reformat a few things with somewhat the same intent still being in place. But I've noticed that even if I ask the same question a few times, I start losing some context because AI is trying to satisfy everybody, at least find information that stays in the middle of the road. That's not what information does, but keep that in mind when you take a look when you're doing your searches here. And again, here's a little more context that goes with this. All right, so I asked another question. Is there anywhere in the Bill of Rights stating, look, I got it right that time, stating that America is a Christian nation? And again, this is what I got. No, the U.S. Bill of Rights and the Constitution do not state that America is a Christian nation. In fact, the First Amendment, part of the Bill of Rights, prohibits the establishment of a national religion and guarantees the free exercise of all religions. The Constitution is a secular document containing no mention, I say again, no mention of Christianity or Jesus Christ, and Article 6 explicitly states there is no religious test required for public office, which is contrary to the idea of an officially Christian nation. Oops. Am I telling any lies, folks? Put a 1 in the column for who's still here if I'm telling the truth. Put a 2 in the column if you think I am lying. Just gonna dab it out here a little bit. It is hot in this hotel room. I don't think the air is cut on. There it is, folks. So if you ever hear anybody else, all right, we got the one from Hunting. Hey, we got the facts so far from Agent Smith. Hey, folks, that's all I'm going to do here. I'm going to tell you what's true. No need for you to come here and be lied to by me also. Not going to happen. So if you hear anybody attempt to tell you that America is a Christian nation, you can go back and pull this up and it will tell you the fact that no, it is not. Only from a supremacist will they try and get you to believe your lying eyes that the United States is a Christian nation. All right, so the last thing that we're going to do, and then we'll close it out with me going over the tenets of Supremacist Spoke one last time, is take a look at this situation with Jimmy Kimmel. Trump has been gunning for him for what, about the better part of almost 10 years. And the only reason he was able to do it right now is because of the fact that we have seen a level of corruption of the government that has never been seen. Ever. Before this stuff got started with, Tortoise. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Mitch McConnell. Before Mitch McConnell stole Obama's Supreme Court pick, which put all this into motion. You go back to 1992 and 93. It was right after the Democrats lost their ass in the midterms. Newt Gingrich was responsible for this political bile that we see right now. Yeah, we won. So what? To the victors go to spoils. This is literally where that tribalism began in politics, all the way back in 92. I wasn't really tracking it back then, but after taking the time now as an adult, going back and looking at everything as it was, that is where everything we see with the political turmoil between the two parties began. Never has the Republican or Democratic Party been united the way that it was back during the Watergate scandal. Whereas even though both sides had distinctly different ideas, they still both knew what was right and what was wrong. Imagine if Donald Trump had the same type of environment when he was being brought up for impeachment on Ukraine, impeachment for January 6th. oh, he would not have been in office. But that's not what we have. The architect of this whole demise of democracy that we're seeing right now, potentially, started with Newt Gingrich. It got a good and decisive bump with Newt, as you were, with Mitch McConnell stealing Obama's Supreme Court pick that gave them Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and shit people, pushed Amy Coney Barrett onto the bench 10 days or within 10 days or so before the 2020 election, after making a statement 3 to 5 months prior, oh, we're not going to fill this seat because, as McConnell said in 2016, the next president needs to be the person who chooses. And then they sat there and blew up the whole premise that they created. Madness. But let me come back here. So Jimmy Kimmel replaced by a familiar face. And of course, it was Steve Harvey. But before we get to that, I just want to go ahead and kind of surmise this. We all know what happened. Jimmy made some statements. They weren't a lie. He made a statement about Charlie Kirk. He wasn't celebrating the man's death, but still, people took offense to this. Actually, let's hear the statement as he made it here. But as I said before, they are giving his slot to reruns of Family Feud here. Now, is it in? Let me see. Is it in this statement? The sickest kind of receivers he called. Well, look, here's Trump's statement. Here, look at this. Great news for America. The ratings challenge Jimmy Kimmel's show is canceled. Jimmy never had any issues with his ratings. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers of fake news, NBC. Their ratings are so horrible. Do it, NBC. President Donald J. Trump. Trump has celebrated both Jimmy's cancellation and that of Stephen Colbert. Now, what is happening here when you got the U.S. president who is talking directly from the Oval Office saying, get rid of these shows? Now, remember I talked about the 7 Mountain Mandate, and I mentioned the areas that Christians or, the supremacist side want to control to ensure there's complete domination. As I said before, this is what's happening right now. This is the 7 Mountains Mandate taking place right in front of us. No, your eyes are not lying, but you probably have not been paying attention. After tonight, I hope you guys do, and make sure you have a conversation with others. Send them this way if they need to see the facts. Now, what you have here is the FCC chairman cozying up with the administration. Here we go, right here, right in between. We got Kash Patel, who himself is a conspiracy theorist. We've got a conspiracy theorist who is in charge of the top law enforcement office in the nation. And here is the FCC chairman, who's supposed to be impartial, who's at, I think this is one of Turning Point's galas. The FCC chairman, meant to be independent and nonpartisan, at a Turning Point USA, Kirk's organization, inauguration event with Trump's son and FBI Director Kash Patel. This is the guy threatening ABC. If you don't do something about Jimmy Kimmel, we will, and your organization. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Now, here are the comments that Jimmy made. Jimmy's exact comments were, we hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. And in between the finger pointing, there was grieving on Friday. The White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this. It then cuts to a video of Trump deflecting a question about his longtime ally's death and changing the subject to construction of his new $200 million ballroom he's building at the White House. It's going to be a beauty. That is what got Jimmy Kimmel fired. Notice he was not poking fun at the death of Charlie Kirk. He merely explained the facts as they were laid out. And then, of course, he got laid out. So as I said, folks, I want you to think of the 7 Mountain Mandate. Matter of fact, let me put this up here back on fact. Let me put this up here one more time. 7 Mountain Mandate. Wikipedia. You know, we're winning right now. We'll stay at the tab. All right. So again, the 7 Mountain Mandate. The 7 Mountain Mandate, also 7 Mountains Mandate, 7M, 7MM, or 7 Mountains Dominionism, is a dominionist conservative Christian ideology within evangelical Christianity, particularly independent charismatic groups. It holds that there are 7 aspects of society that believers seek to dominate: family, religion, education, media, arts and entertainment, business, and government. All right, I'm reading this to you guys one more time. So after this whole 2 hours and 16 minutes that you've been through, you can walk away with this information and put it all together now. We are watching the 7 Mountains Mandate come into fruition, and it's closing right now. There's only so much the current judiciary in the U.S. can do before it needs to be augmented. We need to make sure that whoever is still here in 2026 and 2028 are able to get their asses into the voting box and stop this both sides bullshit. There's only one side that is responsible for the primary use of political violence, and it has been documented as being right-wing. Just today, or actually yesterday or today, Donald Trump rubbed out, or should I say Donald Trump's administration rubbed out a report. All right, they made it disappear, and this was a news story that pointed out that it was far-right violence that was more prevalent in the 2000 era, or at least in the last 3 to 5 years. That was in print. If I can find that, I'll add it to the description of this show as well. But as I said, the 7 Mountain Mandate is what we're seeing come to fruition right now. Now, remember what I said about the prominent followers? Lauren Boebert, pardon my braces, Mike Johnson, and this guy again right here who's been getting all the attention, Charlie Clark. Damn it. Charlie Kirk. I made it all the way through the show and didn't call him Clark, but Charlie Kirk. He was also someone who pushed and believed the 7 Mountain Mandate. I say again, folks, tell me where I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm lying to anybody. I can only show you the facts. All right, so let's go ahead and start powering down. But as I promised, let's go through one last time the 6 tenets of extremist spoken word. 1, color, their primary sweet spot of disparagement. Example, Charlie Kirk disparaging Ketanji Brown, Vice President Harris, Joy Reid, Sir Jackson Lee, with a misleading claim of their levels of intelligence. Number 2, control, the need for order to enforce their sense of morality and values in others. Example, Charlie Kirk telling Taylor Swift to submit to her fiance. Number 3, conflation, the need to make comparisons of actual credibility to their falsehoods and mischaracterizations. Example, comparisons of Donald Trump and or Charlie Kirk to Martin Luther King Jr. Number 4, contradiction, routinely undermining the core aspect of their own bigotry with conflicting statements followed by the obligatory disingenuous double down defense. Example, Charlie Kirk didn't insult Brown, Harris's, or Reed's race. He is referring to their intelligence, which, as we know, again, is let me put it this way. The overriding aspect of discrimination per extremism exists around considering races other than white mentally and intellectually inferior. So again, that's contradiction. Number 5, conniving speech. Evasive, pontificated, misleading, and demonstrably false commentary fomenting racial vitriol in Southern strategy-style mannerisms of hate speech dressed up as legitimate political discord, engaging in the use of political theater and disingenuous debate. Example, blacks plowed around in groups looking to attack white people. That's a fact. And the last one, Christ, utilizing scripture to justify acts of racism as being ordained and divine, thus favored by a non-existent God. And the last example I just gave was the 7 Mountains mandate. And again, here's the example I gave. Charlie Kirk believes in the Christian nationalist concept of the 7 Mountains mandate, which calls on far-right Christians to control not just our government, but media, business, and education for starters. All right, we have done as much of the damn thing as we're going to do tonight. So I want to say thanks to Smith, thanks to Wisdom. I appreciate you, Carl, for coming through. Obviously, you may catch this here in the excuse me, in the replay. Robert Platinum, same thing to you, man. I appreciate you for coming through as well. So what's the last thing I can leave off with here? Folks, this is it. We are seeing the type of struggle that went on in the 50s. Although we don't have the dogs, we don't have the guns, we still have more rules that are in play right now. But nonetheless, we are seeing a change. We are actually seeing people losing their liberties, their privileges, their civil rights. And people are sitting here still laughing at pictures of dogs, cats, twerking, dorking, whatever this nonsense is. No one is paying attention to what's happening right now. We are on the verge of idiocracy to the 10th. The only thing I can keep saying to you folks is get active and get to the voting box. That is the least that we can do, but that will give us the most opportunity to right this ship that is going down right now. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. Again, I appreciate everyone for showing up. I'll see you next time. All right. Thanks again, as always, Smith. Same thing, Hunting. We'll check you next time. John Henry out.